Hey there, I'm Scott the Pie Guy, and as you know, I am just a guy learning how to make pies. Today, we're going to try something totally different. Should be good, hoping it's good, but today we are going for the pizza pie. We're going to do it with some focaccia bread base, so it's not just store-bought. I'm going to make the focaccia bread myself, first time ever making bread, and we're going to have a lot of fun with this one. Getting started early this morning because there's a lot of downtime with yeast. My first experience using yeast. So we have 4.5 cups of flour. I'm going to add 2.5 teaspoons of kosher salt. That in there. And then we have 1.5 teaspoons of active dry yeast. So, pretty complicated so far. Stir this up, get it all kind of mixed in. Hard to see the salt and the yeast, but we'll trust it's mixing in. So then we're going to add 1 3/4 cup lukewarm water to this. Get it actually forming a dough. And 3 tablespoons of olive oil in there. Set that aside. Give this a stir. Supposed to get it all nice and doughy. Totally different than a pie crust. This is going to be much more gummy, I guess is the word I'll use. I'm going to knead it a little bit, see if we can get it. Because I know with bread you're supposed to knead bread, so I can't believe I'd be hurting this by doing that. Now we are getting much more. It's definitely more sticky than, which is what I had expected from the start. So now I think we're getting it where we need it to be. I had extra flour here just in case it became too sticky, which is one thing they advise. Okay, so that's in there. Next step, wash my hands quick. And then the last little bit before we leave it set for a while is to cover this in plastic wrap. Nice and tight. Let this sit for 2 hours. Come back and work the next stage. And so I'm going to go drink my coffee. We're ready to go. It's been a long wait. Early this morning we got up, made our dough. It's pizza crust, I should say. Made our crust. And it's been sitting out at room temperature for a couple hours, then refrigerated for 8 hours. Next step is we're going to we're going to spread this out on the pan. A little bit of olive oil to coat it with. A little bit more. There we go. And I got a handy dandy paper towel. Spread that around a little bit. Going to get up the sides. Okay, we got this spread around a little bit. Gently set this out of the way because it's pretty oily. And now comes the test. Dig this out of the bowl. I'm going to put some there on that side so let's get a little bit of oil on that, and then spread this around to get that. So next, we're just going to spread it out a little bit. Okay, so we got this mostly spread across the whole pan. The recipe said it probably wouldn't reach the edges, but it looks like it did. Next phase, get a little napkin to wipe myself with, is I'm just going to cover it, and it's going to set aside for 10 minutes while we start working on some other things. Next step, got the dough covered over there, the crust covered over there. I keep wanting to call it dough, but we got to call it crust. It's a crust, pizza crust. So that's setting aside, letting it, I guess, get to room temperature. We'll mess with it in a second. But before we can get too far on that, we need to strain these tomatoes. Everything I hear, San Marzano is the way to go. So that's what we went with. If I can open it. There we go. There they come. It's like, this looks like a lot of sauce. So I don't, because they said the juice, so maybe there's some juice that's going to come out of there. But we're going to shake it a little, set it aside, let it drip for what it's doing, because we're going to come back and crush that. Next, we're grabbing the pizza crust, unseal it, and now we're supposed to be able to push it more into the corners. It is definitely easier to work with. It's staying in the corners much like they said it was supposed to. If it wasn't staying in the corners, I was supposed to leave it sit a little bit, but it is staying on the edges like it's supposed to do. So we'll get that put out to the edge and build a little bit of a lip, but not too much, because you'll see what we're doing. One thing we haven't talked about is what kind of pizza we're making. We're going to go with the version of a margherita. So just some sauce, cheese, crust, a little bit of basil, and call it a day. Okay, that I think looks how I want it. It's nice into the corners, how I want it. We'll set it aside again for about 25 minutes this time. And while that is resting, we'll get started on the next part, which is making the sauce. We're coming up on 25 minutes. The crust, got it right that time. The crust looks to be puffing a little bit. Not sure, I haven't paid that close of attention to it. Next though is the sauce. We have the drained San Marzano tomatoes. They're gonna go in there. We're gonna hand crush those in a second here. Grab a spoon. Get that out of the way. Those will be hand crushed. We also have a teaspoon of red wine vinegar that will add a nice little bit of a bite to it. Put that there, ditch that. Need a little bit of salt, half a teaspoon. That's a half a teaspoon. That's going to go in the sink since I spilled. So, whoops. And then we made kind of a last minute change. The recipe called for red pepper flakes and olive oil. And I was going to add some fire roasted tomatoes, but I remembered I had Mama Lil's peppers in the refrigerator, so decided to use that for the olive oil, the red pepper flakes, and the fire roasted tomatoes. One of my favorite flavors to cook with is this Mama Lil's peppers. So I diced it all up, took some of the oil out of the jar, and we're going to put that in the sauce. So it's going to add a wonderful flavor to it. Get that set aside. And next, I'm just going to crush these. I did wash my hands, so I'm going to use my hands to kind of crush these up. Crushed up pretty well. I'm going to just do a little bit. I'm trying to leave some chunks in to give it nice texture to it, but I don't want massive chunks because I want it to spread a little bit. So I'm kind of just looking for anything that's bigger than what I think it should be as far as tomato chunks in a pizza bite. But I think we're pretty good. Next step, wash my hands. Now we're ready to start building the pizza. The crust held up well. I have 16 ounces of shredded thick kind of shredded mozzarella cheese, and then the sauce, of course. So what I'm going to do is first, and I think this must be to help keep some of the moisture away from the crust, is they said put the cheese down first. Maybe that's how you're supposed to make the pizza. I don't know. This is also going to be, apparently there's a new thing out there, been around forever, but the world's hearing about it. This thing called Detroit style pizza that takes the cheese all the way to the crust so it gets some burnt edges. Well, I'm gonna do that, because so we're gonna put the cheese all the way out. Got it most of the way covered, not necessarily trying to get it totally covered because some sauce will get in there, but it's a good solid coating of cheese down below with some cheese going out to the edges. Now we're going to cover this with sauce, but I of course forgot to do one thing, a little bit of basil, so we're going to put a little bit of basil in there first, add a little bit of color. I did save some of the cheese off just as a decoration, potential decoration, so get this stirred around. And then we'll start adding the sauce. Used all of it. I don't know if it was me, but they called for half a can of the size I used, but that to me does not look nearly saucy enough. So I went ahead and added all of it. I am kind of pushing it down into the cheese a little bit. It's not going to cover everything, but half a can just didn't seem right. So we got that going. And there's that. Okay, so that's our basic pizza, but of course we have a few finishing touches to add. Last step before putting this thing in the oven is, even though it looks really good, we got to make it up a little bit better. First thing I'm going to do is just kind of spot some Parmesan over top of the sauce, just to give a little bit of dots of cheese color into the sauce. Just kind of all over, pretty light. I'm going to, after it bakes, I'm going to add some more to the top of it. And same thing, very little bit of mozzarella, very little bit, just some bigger spots of the shredded part. So there's just a little bit of those. Next, slices of tomato. That's what the Margherita is all about. Fresh tomatoes on there, kind of get them a little random looking, even though it may or may not be random, but just kind of drop those on there. One more to put on. And last, big discs of the whole fresh mozzarella cheese right on top too. Get a little bit of melt in there. Put those in between where the tomatoes are. And put one right there. Just till it kind of looks a little bit cool. Put one there, move that over. Move that. I'm trying to make it a little pretty. I'm going to take this smallish one, put in there. And I don't like that. Do that. There it is, ready to go in the oven. About 17 minutes, very hot oven, 475. So about 17 to 20 minutes. We'll check it probably a little bit early just to double check, but in the oven it goes. I went ahead and peaked a little bit at 15, like I set the original timer. And we're down to less than 10 seconds, but it's going to be done at 17 seconds, or 17 minutes, 8 seconds from now. So there it is. And I'm confident it is done. So I'm going to even go ahead and turn off the oven. Get out my mitts, safety first, you know. And then we'll pull this thing out. Got nasty fog on the glasses. But there we go. I think we have a successful pizza. Couple last things to do before we leave it sit and cut into it after it sits. Sprinkle a little bit more of this grated Parmesan on top, just a little bit. It'll get on the tomatoes a little bit, hopefully make it look a little more decorative. And last, you have to have this, some fresh basil. Drop on there. Got those a little close. And then that'll heat up. Try to spread those around a little. And one more over there. That's it. There we have it. A focaccia Detroit style margherita pizza. Let it set and we'll give it a taste. Very happy with the way this turned out. I have the basil on there. It's setting up well. And probably the best thing about a pizza pie as opposed to the other pies is I don't have to wait a couple hours to cut into it. So here we go. Give this a little slice. Hopefully the underside held together. Guess there's only one way to find out. Ooh, it snagged a little bit. Whoops. Here we go. Not bad looking. Still steaming. Pretty clean pan. Set that aside there. Get this away. Now we give it a taste. I'm not going to take the corner. I'm going to take the inside because I'm mostly curious about how the crust cooked up on the inside part of the pizza. Still pretty hot. Hope I don't burn myself. Crust held up good. Maybe a little soggy, but flavor's good. If it were me, I'd put a little bit more Mama Lil's in there, add a little bit of more kick to it. So I'll probably sprinkle some red pepper on there. But overall, good pizza. That's all I gotta say. We'll come back soon.